Hello and welcome. Beyond the familiar territories of Faerun, past the endless expanse of trackless desert and shimmering mirages, you find yourself drawn to a realm that exists almost as a secret whispered between worlds. Al-Qadim represents something extraordinary in the vast multiverse of dungeons and dragons. This Arabian Nights-inspired campaign setting emerged in 1992, offering players and dungeon masters a completely different flavor of fantasy adventure, where other settings built their foundations on European medieval traditions. Al-Qadim turned its gaze eastward, crafting a world steeped in the mystery and wonder of Middle Eastern and North African folklore. The continent of Zakhara stretches across a vast expanse of desert, coastal cities, fertile river valleys, and treacherous mountain ranges. You discover that this is not merely another corner of Toril, the world that houses Faerun. Zakhara exists as something deliberately separate, isolated from the rest of the planet by thousands of miles of impassable desert known as the Haunted Lands. This geographical barrier creates more than physical separation. It establishes cultural, magical, and philosophical independence that makes Zakhara feel like an entirely different world despite sharing the same planet. The peninsula measures roughly 3,000 miles from north to south and 2,000 miles from east to west, creating a land mass comparable to Faerun itself, but with vastly different character and climate. The very name Zakhara carries weight and meaning. You learn that inhabitants call their homeland the Land of Fate, a designation that reveals the fundamental philosophy shaping every aspect of their civilization. Fate, honor, and enlightenment form the three pillars supporting Zakharan society. These concepts interweave so thoroughly into daily life that you cannot separate them from politics, religion, magic, or even casual conversation between merchants haggling over spice prices in a crowded bazaar. Fate governs everything in Zakhara. You understand that this belief extends far beyond simple fatalism or passive acceptance of predetermined outcomes. The Zakharan conception of fate embraces active participation in one's destiny, while acknowledging that greater forces shape the broad strokes of existence. A Zakharan warrior might say that fate determines whether she will die in battle, but her skill and courage determine whether that death comes honorably or shamefully. A merchant believes fate controls whether his caravan reaches its destination safely. Yet, he still hires guards and plans his route carefully, because fate also requires mortal action. This philosophical framework creates a society markedly different from those you encounter in the Sword Coast or the Dalelands. The people of Zakhara approach challenges with a unique blend of acceptance and determination. They plan meticulously while remaining flexible when circumstances change. They fight fiercely while acknowledging that victory or defeat ultimately lies in fate's hands. This mindset produces remarkable resilience in the face of hardship and a cultural tendency toward hospitality, generosity and grace, even when dealing with enemies. Honor represents the second pillar of Zakharan civilization. You discover that honor in this context extends beyond personal reputation or martial prowess. Honor encompasses proper behavior toward family, guests, allies, and even rivals. Breaking an oath constitutes one of the gravest disgraces imaginable. Offering hospitality to a traveler, even one who might be an enemy tomorrow, represents a sacred duty. Protecting those under your care, keeping your word, and facing challenges openly rather than through deception, all fall under the umbrella of honorable conduct. An individual's honor colors their family's reputation as well, creating powerful incentive to maintain ethical behavior across generations. The concept of enlightenment completes the philosophical trinity. You learn that enlightenment in Zakhara represents understanding and acceptance of the law of the lawgiver, the sacred code governing proper behavior and spiritual development. An enlightened individual acts in harmony with these principles, whether that role involves serving as a humble farmer, a mighty sultan, or a wandering mystic. The pursuit of enlightenment drives many Zakharans to undertake pilgrimages, seek wisdom from holy teachers, or dedicate themselves to perfecting a craft or art form. These three pillars create a society with remarkably consistent values across diverse cultures and kingdoms. You find that a desert nomad and an urban merchant prince both embrace fate, honor, and enlightenment, though they might express these values differently based on their circumstances and traditions. The geography of Zakhara shapes its cultures and conflicts, as surely as philosophy shapes its values. The continent stretches from the northern reaches, where cooler climates support forests and grasslands, through the central deserts, where survival requires cunning and endurance, to the southern coasts, where monsoon winds bring seasonal rains, and oceanic trade routes promise wealth and adventure. The high desert dominates the northern interior of Zakhara. You traverse endless dunes of golden sand that shift and reform with every wind, creating a landscape in constant flux. Temperatures during the day reach punishing extremes that can kill an unprepared traveler within hours, while nights bring cold so intense that you might wake to find frost on your blankets. Despite the desert location, the high desert harbors ancient ruins, hidden oases guarded jealously by nomadic tribes, and creatures adapted to the harsh environment. Sandstorms blow across the wastes with terrifying frequency, their howling winds carrying stinging particles that scour flesh from bone if you lack proper shelter. The nomadic tribes crossing these deserts develop remarkable survival skills and deep knowledge of the land. You travel with these people, known as the Al-Qadim, learning to read the subtle signs indicating underground water sources, to navigate by stars and sand patterns, and to maintain your honor even when resources grow scarce. These nomads follow ancient migration routes, moving their herds of camels, goats, and horses between seasonal grazing areas and trading posts, where they exchange animal products, desert herbs, and information for goods they cannot produce themselves. Mountain ranges rise from the desert floor like the spines of sleeping dragons. The furrowed mountains in the northwest create a natural barrier between different regions, their peaks reaching high enough to capture snow even in this southern latitude. You climb treacherous passes where one misstep sends you tumbling into crevasses so deep that your body might never be recovered. Mountain clans inhabit these heights, people who have adapted to thin air and steep terrain, developing their own distinct cultures and traditions. These highlanders mine precious metals and gemstones from the mountain depths, trading their mineral wealth for lowland goods like grain, textiles, and worked metal items. The coasts of Zakhara present a dramatic contrast to the desert interior. You stand on beaches where azure waters lap against white sand, where date palms sway in ocean breezes, and where the air carries the tang of salt mixed with exotic spices from distant lands. The Golden Gulf, stretching along Zakhara's northern coast, serves as the primary maritime trade route connecting eastern and western regions of the continent. Merchant vessels ply these waters constantly, their holds filled with silk from the east, spices from the islands, metalwork from mountain forges, and countless other goods. Port cities dot the coastline, each developing its own character and specialties. You walk through harbors where dhows and larger ocean-going vessels compete for dock space, where merchants from a dozen different kingdoms argue over prices in a babel of languages and dialects, where the smell of fish drying in the sun mingles with incense smoke from nearby temples. These coastal cities generally enjoy greater wealth and cosmopolitan attitudes than inland settlements, their prosperity built on trade, and their cultures enriched by constant contact with foreign ideas and traditions. The crowded sea, lying south and east of the main continent, scatters hundreds of islands across its warm waters. You sail between these islands, discovering that each one might host a completely different culture, government, or even magical tradition. Some islands support sophisticated city-states, rivaling the mainland powers in wealth and influence. Others remain home to isolated villages, maintaining traditions unchanged for centuries. A few harbor monsters, hostile tribes, or ancient ruins too dangerous for permanent settlement, but tempting enough to attract adventurers seeking glory and treasure. According to legend, these islands once served as seats for gods, though whether this reflects actual history or poetic metaphor remains uncertain. River systems provide the lifeblood for Zakhara's agricultural regions. You follow the flow of great rivers like the River of Gold, which carries silt from the mountains to create fertile flood plains, supporting intensive farming. These river valleys become population centers, their fields producing grain, vegetables, and fruit to feed the cities. Farmers develop sophisticated irrigation systems, drawing water from the rivers to extend cultivation into areas that would otherwise remain desert. Towns spring up along the riverbanks, serving as collection points for agricultural products and distribution centers for manufactured goods. The cultural diversity within Zakhara rivals its geographical variety. You encounter dozens of distinct ethnic groups, each maintaining their own languages, customs, and traditions, while also participating in the broader Zakharan civilization. The Al-Hadhar, urban dwellers who populate the great cities, develop refined courtly manners, sophisticated arts, and complex political systems. The Al-Badia, nomadic desert peoples, maintain ancient tribal structures and preserve oral traditions stretching back centuries. The seafaring peoples of the coasts and islands cultivate naval traditions and maritime skills, their lives governed by wind, tide, and the moods of the sea. What makes Zakharan society truly distinctive compared to other Dungeons and Dragons settings is the remarkable racial integration pervading the culture. You discover that elves, dwarves, humans, orcs, gnolls, and even goblinoids all participate equally in Zakharan civilization. Traditional racial animosities have been washed away by the shared culture of Enlightenment. An elf merchant and an orc guard might work together without tension, both viewing themselves primarily as Zakharans rather than members of separate species. This unity stems from shared acceptance of the law of the Lorgavir and the philosophy of Enlightenment that transcends racial boundaries. The class structure in Zakharan society reflects both practical considerations and philosophical principles. You discover that social mobility exists to a degree unusual in medieval fantasy settings, with the understanding that fate might elevate a commoner to rulership or cast a noble into poverty. This belief doesn't eliminate class distinctions or privilege, but it does create a social system more fluid than the rigid hierarchies found in many other settings. At the apex of society stand the rulers, the caliphs, sultans, sheiks, and emirs, who govern kingdoms, cities, and tribes. You observe how these rulers maintain power through a combination of hereditary authority, personal capability, and the loyalty they inspire in their subjects. A weak or incompetent ruler might find themselves replaced through palace intrigue, popular uprising, or simply the withdrawal of support by key subordinates. This creates pressure on rulers to govern wisely and maintain their honor, as their positions remain secure only as long as they fulfill their ordained roles effectively. The merchant class wields enormous influence in Zakharan society. You walk among traders who have accumulated wealth rivaling that of minor princes, their caravans and ships connecting distant markets and making them indispensable to the economy. Merchants organize into powerful guilds that regulate trade, resolve disputes between members, and negotiate with rulers for favorable terms. The most successful merchants maintain their own private armies for caravan protection, own warehouses and ships across multiple cities and arrange marriages, creating commercial dynasties spanning generations. Scholars, sages, and holy teachers occupy a respected position, transcending simple economic class. You sit in libraries and schools where learned individuals preserve ancient knowledge, debate philosophy, and train new generations in everything from mathematics and astronomy to theology and magical theory. These scholars often serve as advisors to rulers, their counsel valued for its basis in learning and enlightenment rather than self-interest. The pursuit of knowledge represents a path to enlightenment, making scholarship a spiritually valuable occupation, regardless of its financial rewards. Craftspeople, farmers, and laborers form the foundation of Zakharan economy and society. You work alongside artisans who have perfected their crafts over decades, their skills producing everything from simple pottery to exquisite metalwork, inlaid with precious metals and gemstones. The guild system extends to craftspeople as well, with each trade organizing to maintain quality standards, train apprentices, and protect members' interests. Farmers follow seasonal cycles, planting and harvesting crops, their labor feeding the cities and maintaining the agricultural surplus that allows urban civilization to flourish. Slavery exists in Zakharan society, though you learn that it operates under specific cultural restrictions. The dominant, enlightened faith prohibits enslaving fellow believers, which limits slavery primarily to prisoners of war from outside Zakhara, or those who have committed serious crimes. Slaves possess certain rights under law and custom, including protection from excessive cruelty and the possibility of earning or purchasing their freedom. Mamluks, elite slave soldiers, occupy a paradoxical position of high status and influence despite their enslaved condition, often wielding more power than free commoners. Women's roles in Zakharan society vary considerably by region, class, and cultural tradition. You encounter female warriors, merchants, scholars, and even rulers in some areas, while other regions maintain more restrictive gender roles. The setting materials deliberately avoid imposing a single monolithic approach to gender, recognizing that different Zakharan cultures would develop different traditions based on local circumstances and history. The relationship between settled peoples and nomadic tribes creates ongoing tension and cooperation throughout Zakharan history. You witness how urban rulers attempt to control or ally with desert tribes, whose knowledge of the wastes and control over caravan routes gives them leverage despite their relatively small numbers and limited material wealth. Nomadic raiders sometimes threaten settled communities, while settled peoples occasionally push into traditional nomadic territories. Yet both groups recognize their interdependence, with cities needing the nomads, camels, guides, and trade connections, while nomads rely on cities for manufactured goods, grain during lean years, and markets for their animals and desert products. Magic permeates Zakharan life, but but you discover that it manifests differently than in other Dungeons and Dragons settings. The relationship between mortals and genies shapes magical practice in fundamental ways. Sha'ir, wizards who gain their power by bargaining with genies through intermediary spirits called Gen, represent the most distinctly Zakharan magical tradition. These spellcasters don't memorize spells in the traditional fashion, but instead send their Gen to retrieve magical effects from genies dwelling on the elemental planes. This creates a more unpredictable, but potentially more flexible approach to magic, with Sha'ir developing skills in negotiation and relationship building alongside their arcane knowledge. Elemental magic dominates over other schools of spellcasting. You study with mages who specialize in fire, water, air, or earth magic, their power drawing directly from the elemental planes and the genies ruling those realms. This elemental focus reflects Zakhara's cosmological understanding, which places greater emphasis on the elemental planes than on other outer planes commonly featured in Dungeons and Dragons cosmology. Divine magic flows through the unique religious structure governing Zakharan spirituality. You learn that priests can serve broad ethical concepts rather than individual deities, with the power of their faith channeled through a theological framework that emphasizes universal principles. This creates a religious landscape quite different from the typically polytheistic systems found in most fantasy settings. The monsters and creatures inhabiting Zakhara include familiar fantasy staples alongside beings specific to this setting. You track creatures through desert wastes, from the mundane dangers of scorpions, vipers, and hostile nomads to the supernatural threats of Efreeti raiding parties, undead haunting ancient ruins, and stranger things lurking in the deep desert. The bestiary draws heavily from Middle Eastern and North African folklore, introducing creatures like gulls, rocks of enormous size capable of carrying off elephants, and yakmen, strange yak-headed humanoids dwelling in mountain regions. This first glimpse into Zakhara reveals a setting built on careful cultural adaptation, philosophical depth, and commitment to creating something genuinely different within the Dungeons and Dragons multiverse. The Land of Fate offers you adventures where honor and destiny matter as much as gold and glory, where the desert itself becomes a character in your stories, and where the exotic and familiar blend into something uniquely compelling. You stand now at the threshold of deeper understanding, ready to explore the divine powers shaping this realm and the supernatural beings who walk among mortals in Zakhara's storied lands. Section 2: The Divine Pantheon and the Great Betrayal. The religious landscape of Zakhara stands as one of the most distinctive elements, separating this setting from all others in the Dungeons and Dragons multiverse. You discover that the people of the Land of Fate don't worship gods in the traditional sense that inhabitants of Faerun or other continents might recognize. Instead, an ancient covenant binds the divine and mortal realms together, creating a theological framework unlike anything you've encountered in your travels across other worlds. To understand Zakharan religion, you must first learn of the lawgiver, a mysterious figure whose true nature remains deliberately unclear even to the most learned scholars and devoted priests. Historical accounts describe the lawgiver's appearance in Zakhara during ancient times, an era when the land suffered under tyranny. The exact nature of this tyranny varies between different tellings. Some sources describe sorcerer kings wielding magic without wisdom or restraint, while others suggest a time of religious conflict and divine warfare. What remains consistent across all accounts is that Zakhara existed in a state of chaos and suffering before the lawgiver's intervention. The lawgiver walked among the people during this age of darkness, teaching a new philosophy and offering hope where none had existed. You listen to the ancient tales describing how this figure moved from city to city, from nomadic camp to farming village, speaking to all who would listen. The lawgiver taught that enlightenment comes through understanding one's place in the cosmic order and living according to principles of honor and fate. This message resonated with people across all walks of life, from slaves to rulers. You learn that the lawgiver proclaimed the law of the lawgiver, a comprehensive code establishing proper relationships between mortals, the divine, and the supernatural. This law contains provisions governing everything from personal conduct to the use of magic, from treatment of genies to the pursuit of enlightenment. The core principle underlying all aspects of the law holds that ethical behavior and spiritual growth matter more than ritual or displays of power. The lawgiver gathered followers, and these followers spread the teachings throughout Zakhara. The movement grew despite resistance from those invested in maintaining the old order. Historical records from this period remain fragmentary, but they suggest a transformation, both spiritual and political, as the lawgiver's philosophy gained acceptance across the land. The great transformation came when the lawgiver established the covenant. You stand in imagination at that pivotal moment in Zakharan history, when the fundamental rules governing divine power in this land changed forever. The lawgiver ascended, and there made an agreement with the gods themselves. The exact details of this covenant remain mysterious, known in full only to the most enlightened priests, and perhaps not even to them. What you can learn from historical records and religious teachings reveals several key provisions that reshaped Zakharan civilization. Under the covenant, the gods agreed to certain limitations on their interactions with the mortal world. They would not walk the earth in physical form as gods from other pantheons sometimes do, would not demand blood sacrifice or enforced worship, and would grant their power only to those pursuing enlightenment rather than domination. In exchange, mortals agreed to follow the law of the lawgiver, to pursue enlightenment through ethical living, and to honor the gods through righteous behavior rather than empty ceremony. This mutual agreement created a relationship between divine and mortal realms based on cooperation and shared principles rather than fear and compulsion. The covenant transformed magic itself within Zakhara's borders. You discover that certain forms of magic practiced commonly in other lands simply don't function properly here. Magic designed to create undead encounters resistance from the covenant itself, making necromancy difficult and generally unsuccessful. This restriction stems from the law's prohibition against defiling the dead and disrupting the natural order of life and death. The gods of Zakhara, known collectively as the Pantheon, organized themselves according to principles established by the covenant. You learn that these deities represent various aspects of existence and different paths to enlightenment. The Pantheon includes both ancient gods who existed before the covenant and adapted their worship to comply with the new law, as well as what are called the mortal gods, beings who achieved such perfect enlightenment during mortal life that they transcended mortality entirely upon death. Hakia, goddess of honesty, the sea, and cunning, presents a complex divine personality embodying the principle that wisdom and cleverness need not involve deception. You call upon Hakia when navigating treacherous situations requiring both sharp thinking and ethical behavior. She teaches that true cunning comes from understanding situations deeply and acting wisely within the constraints of honor. Sailors worship Hakia as mistress of the sea and protector of those who travel ocean waters, while merchants and diplomats honor her as patron of honest dealing, conducted with intelligence and skill. Haku, the merchant, serves as patron to traders and those who create wealth through commerce. You invoke Haku's name when making important business decisions or seeking success in trade ventures. This deity teaches that commerce serves enlightenment by connecting people, spreading goods and ideas, and creating prosperity that benefits entire communities. Haku's worship emphasizes fair dealing, keeping contracts, and building lasting relationships rather than seeking quick profits through dishonest means. Jisun, goddess of nature and animals, represents the wild lands and the creatures dwelling there. You pray to Jisun when traveling through wilderness areas or when seeking to understand the natural world. She teaches that nature follows its own laws that must be respected, and that humans exist as part of the natural order rather than separate from or superior to it. Nomads, hunters, and those who work closely with animals often honor Jisun, seeking her blessings for successful hunts or safe passage through wild territories. Kor, the scimitar, embodies righteous vengeance and the punishment of evil. You invoke Kor's name when seeking justice against those who have committed terrible wrongs. This deity represents the principle that evil cannot go unpunished, that sometimes violence becomes necessary to stop greater violence, and that society requires those willing to take up arms against wickedness, warriors dedicated to fighting evil, judges who must sentence criminals, and those who have sworn oaths of vengeance naturally align themselves with cores demanding standards. The deity's worship emphasizes that violence must serve justice rather than personal gain, and that even righteous vengeance must be pursued honorably. Najm, the adventurous, serves as patron to explorers, travelers, and those who seek their fortunes through daring deeds. You invoke Najm's name before setting out on perilous journeys or undertaking dangerous quests. This deity embodies curiosity, bravery, and the restless spirit driving mortals to explore unknown territories and test themselves against challenging obstacles. Adventurers of all types count Najm among their favored powers, though the god demands action and courage rather than passive prayer. Selan, the beautiful moon, governs beauty, romantic love, and the mysteries associated with night. You whisper prayers to Selan when seeking to win another's heart or when appreciating artistic excellence. This goddess teaches that beauty serves a spiritual purpose, elevating the soul and opening pathways to enlightenment through aesthetic appreciation. Lovers, artists, and poets count Selan among their favored deities, though her worship extends to anyone who values beauty in its many forms. Zan, the learned, patronizes scholars, sages, and all who pursue knowledge. You study under Zan's guidance, seeking wisdom and understanding through dedicated research and contemplation. This deity holds that knowledge itself represents a form of worship, that learning brings one closer to enlightenment, and that preserving and expanding mortal understanding serves the highest spiritual purposes. Libraries and schools often maintain shrines to Zan, and scholars invoke his name before beginning important research or teaching. The mortal gods represent perhaps the most distinctive and inspiring aspect of Zakharan religion. These deities began their existence as mortal beings who achieved such perfect enlightenment during their lives that they transcended mortality entirely. Upon death, they ascended to divinity, becoming patrons and guides for those following similar paths. The existence of mortal gods demonstrates that the barrier between mortal and divine isn't absolute in Zakhara, that through dedication to enlightenment and perfect adherence to one's destined role, a human or other mortal can achieve godhood. The stories of individual mortal gods provide examples and inspiration, while specific details about each mortal god's path to enlightenment exist in religious texts. The common thread running through all their stories involves complete dedication to their chosen roles, unwavering ethical behavior, and perfect understanding of their place in fate's design. These gods walked many different paths during mortal life: warrior, scholar, merchant, farmer, artist, demonstrating that enlightenment can be achieved through any honest pursuit conducted with proper dedication and understanding. This concept of mortal ascension to godhood creates a religious framework emphasizing personal development and ethical behavior over ritual and dogma. You don't worship the gods begging for favors or fearing their wrath. Instead, you study their examples, seeking to understand how they achieved enlightenment and how you might follow similar paths in your own life. The gods serve as teachers and guides, their divine power used to assist mortals in their own spiritual journeys, rather than to demand submission or extract worship. The priesthood in Zakhara reflects this unusual theological structure. You discover that priests don't typically dedicate themselves to individual deities, but rather to ethical paths, or what are called ethos. A priest of law serves the principle of order and justice, while a priest of morality serves goodness and compassion. These clerics gain divine power not from a specific god, but from the collective divine forces supporting the covenant itself. Their magic flows from their dedication to principles and their advancement along the path to enlightenment. Some priests do focus their devotion on specific deities, particularly among followers of the mortal gods who seek to emulate their patron's path to enlightenment. These deity-specific priests still operate within the covenant's framework, their power flowing through proper channels, and their worship focused on emulation and learning rather than supplication. You meet priests who have dedicated their entire lives to walking in the footsteps of a particular mortal god, studying every recorded action and teaching attributed to their chosen patron, attempting to achieve the same perfection their god demonstrated during mortal life. The mystery surrounding the lawgiver's ultimate fate adds another layer of complexity to Zakharan religion. You search through ancient texts and oral traditions, trying to determine what became of this pivotal figure after establishing the covenant. Some scholars believe the lawgiver ascended to become a god beyond gods, a supreme divine power watching over the covenant and ensuring its provisions remain honored. Others teach that the lawgiver was a mortal prophet acting as intermediary for the true divine powers, completing the assigned task and then passing from the world. Based on the deliberate ambiguity in source materials, this question likely has no definitive answer, with the lawgiver's true nature remaining one of Zakhara's enduring mysteries. Religious practice in Zakhara emphasizes action over contemplation, though contemplation certainly plays its role. You participate in daily prayers, but these prayers focus on self-improvement and dedication to your chosen path rather than requests for divine intervention. You might pray for the strength to remain honorable when tempted by easy dishonesty, or for the wisdom to recognize your role in fate's design, or for the courage to face challenges without flinching. You don't typically pray for wealth, victory in battle, or safety from danger, understanding that the gods cannot and will not simply grant such requests under the covenant's terms. Pilgrimage represents a major religious practice throughout Zakhara. You undertake journeys to sacred sites, seeking enlightenment through travel and exposure to holy places. Some pilgrimages lead to natural wonders believed to resonate with divine power. Mountain peaks, where the air grows so thin you touch the realm of clouds and wind. Desert springs, whose waters never fail, even during the worst droughts. Or sea caves, where the tide creates music. Other pilgrimages visit sites associated with the mortal gods during their earthly lives. Places where these enlightened beings achieved great deeds or important insights. Charitable works and hospitality carry religious significance in Zakharan culture. You demonstrate your faith through generous treatment of travelers, support for the poor, and protection of the vulnerable. These actions align your behavior with divine principles, moving you along the path to enlightenment, while also creating the just and harmonious society the covenant envisions. Many wealthy individuals endow charitable foundations, establish schools, or build caravanserais, offering free lodging to travelers. Their philanthropy serving both practical and spiritual purposes. This religious framework, so different from the polytheistic systems found in other Dungeons and Dragons settings, creates a society with remarkable philosophical coherence. You see how the Covenant's emphasis on ethical behavior, rather than doctrinal conformity, allows different interpretations and approaches to coexist peacefully. Arguments occur over the proper understanding of the law or the best path to enlightenment. But these debates rarely escalate into religious violence because the underlying principles remain universally accepted. The divine structure of Zakhara offers you a religion that challenges, inspires, and guides without demanding mindless obedience or fostering theological conflict. You walk a path blazed by gods who were once mortal like you, following their examples toward your own enlightenment. The Covenant protects you from divine tyranny while also calling you to higher standards of behavior and deeper spiritual development. In this land, religion serves as a tool for personal and social improvement rather than a source of division and strife. Section 3. Genies, Magic, and Elemental Powers. The elemental planes press closer to reality in Zakhara than in almost any other region of the material world. You feel their presence in the scorching desert winds that carry the breath of the plane of fire, in the sudden storms that sweep across the Golden Gulf with the fury of the plane of air, in the deep wells that tap into streams flowing from the plane of water, and in the very bedrock beneath your feet, connecting to the endless stone of the plane of earth. This proximity creates unique magical conditions and establishes Zakhara as a nexus where genies walk freely among mortals, where elemental power flows more readily into spellwork, and where the boundaries between planes grow thin enough to cross with proper knowledge. Genies dominate the supernatural landscape of Zakhara in ways no other creature type can match. You encounter these elemental beings constantly throughout your travels in the land of fate. They serve as merchants in the bazaars, advisors in royal courts, warriors in armies, teachers in magical academies, and sometimes as tyrants ruling over mortal subjects. The four great genie races, Jinn from the plane of air, Efreet from the plane of fire, Marid from the plane of water, and Tao from the plane of earth, each bring their own temperaments, powers, and cultural traditions to their interactions with the mortal world. The Jinn embody the freedom and capriciousness of wind and sky. You meet these air genies in markets and palaces, their presence announced by the scent of distant storms, and the subtle pressure changes their bodies create in confined spaces. Jinn stand tall and proud, their physical forms reflecting their elemental nature, with skin tones ranging from pale blue to stormy gray. Hair that moves as though stirred by constant breezes, and eyes that flash with lightning during moments of strong emotion. They dress in flowing robes and billowing garments that seem to catch winds no mortal can feel. Their clothing as much part of their elemental essence as deliberate fashion choice. The temperament of Jinn reflects the element they embody. You discover they can be generous and helpful one moment, capricious and difficult the next, their moods shifting like weather patterns across desert skies. Jinn value freedom above all else, making them natural opponents of slavery and tyranny in any form. The history of Zakhara includes a period when powerful wizards bound genies through enslaving magic, forcing them to serve mortal masters against their will. The establishment of the law of the lawgiver broke these bindings, freeing genies from forced servitude. This liberation brought greatest relief to the Jinn, who remember their freedom with gratitude that extends across generations. Jinn society organizes itself into a complex hierarchy of nobles and commoners. You learn that Jinn maintain elaborate courts and social structures on the plane of air, with powerful Jinn nobles ruling vast domains and commanding respect from lesser genies. These nobles sometimes take interest in mortal affairs, involving themselves in politics, warfare, or commerce in the material world. The exact structure of Jinn government and whether they have a single supreme ruler varies between sources, suggesting their society may be more decentralized than other genie races. Common Jinn pursue various occupations, both on their home plane and in Zakhara. You encounter Jinn merchants whose knowledge of planar travel allows them to source exotic goods, Jinn warriors who hire themselves out as guards or mercenaries, and Jinn craftspeople whose elemental abilities give them unique advantages in certain trades. Some Jinn choose to live primarily in the mortal world, establishing permanent residences in Zakharan cities and integrating themselves into human society to varying degrees. These Jinn often marry mortals, producing half-genie offspring who inherit some elemental powers while remaining fundamentally mortal. The Efreet command the terrible power of flame and heat. You approach these fire genies with caution and respect, knowing their tempers burn as hot as the element they embody. Efreet tower over most mortals, their muscular forms wrapped in skin that seems to glow with internal heat, their eyes burning like coals in a forge. Flames dance across their bodies during moments of excitement or anger, and the air around an Efreeti shimmers with heat distortion. They favor rich clothing in reds, oranges, and golds, often decorated with precious metals and gemstones that can withstand the heat they naturally radiate. Unlike the relatively benevolent jinn, Efreet embrace hierarchy and dominance as fundamental principles of their society. You learn that Efreet view reality as a cosmic struggle for power, with the strong naturally ruling over the weak. This philosophy makes them comfortable with slavery, conquest, and the exercise of might to achieve their goals. The city of Brass, mightiest fortress on the plain of fire, serves as the seat of Efreet power, where their sultan rules with absolute authority, enforced by armies of Efreet warriors and enslaved lesser beings. The Efreet relationship with mortals tends toward exploitation when they hold advantage and grudging respect when facing powerful opponents. You negotiate carefully with Efreet, knowing they respect strength and view weakness as invitation for domination. An Efreeti might become a valuable ally if you prove your worth through displays of power, courage, or useful skills. That same Efreeti won't hesitate to betray you if circumstances shift, and betrayal serves their interests better than continued alliance. Dealing with Efreet requires constant vigilance and clear understanding that friendship means something very different to beings whose culture celebrates domination. Efreet nobles rule domains on the plane of fire, their palaces constructed from brass and bronze, their wealth measured in treasures accumulated across the plains. You approach these strongholds with extreme caution, knowing that Efreet hospitality comes with expectations and obligations. An Efreeti host might treat you royally, offering fine food, entertainment, and valuable gifts. But all such generosity comes with unspoken debts. The Efreeti will remember these gifts and expect repayment when the time comes, possibly demanding services dangerous or morally questionable in exchange for past hospitality. The Marid embody the depths and mysteries of water. You encounter these aquatic genies primarily along Zakhara's coasts and on the islands of the crowded sea. Though they can survive on land when necessary, Marid possess fluid grace in their movements, their bodies seeming to flow like water itself. Their skin ranges from blue-green to deep indigo, often bearing patterns reminiscent of waves or currents. Marid hair resembles seaweed or flowing water, and their voices carry the sound of surf and tide. They dress in styles reflecting underwater aesthetics, with flowing fabrics that move as though underwater, even in open air. Marid society values art, beauty, and philosophical contemplation, alongside military prowess and political power. You discover that Marid consider themselves the most cultured and sophisticated of all genie races, a claim other genies dispute vigorously. Marid create stunning works of art from coral, pearl, and precious materials harvested from ocean depths. Their poets compose verses describing undersea wonders mortals will never witness. Their philosophers debate questions about the nature of reality, consciousness, and existence, with passion matching any mortal scholar. The married relationship with mortals varies tremendously based on individual personality and circumstance. Some married view humans as interesting creatures worthy of friendship and alliance. Others see mortals as tools to be used for married purposes. Still, others ignore the surface world entirely, focusing their attention on married concerns beneath the waves. You learn to approach each married as an individual, rather than assuming all water genies share identical attitudes toward humanity. The Tao represent the solidity and permanence of stone and earth. You rarely encounter these earth genies on the surface, as Tao prefer the depths of the plane of earth and deep underground locations in the material world. Tao appear as stocky, powerful beings with stone-like skin bearing mineral textures and colors. Their eyes gleam like gemstones, and their movements carry the weight and deliberateness of continental drift. Tao dress practically in garments reinforced with metal and stone, their fashion emphasizing durability over aesthetics. Tao culture centers on accumulation of wealth and expansion of territory. You learn that Tao measures status primarily through possession of material goods, particularly precious metals and gemstones. They maintain vast underground kingdoms on the plane of earth, their fortresses carved from solid stone and decorated with mineral wealth. Tao employ slaves extensively in their mining operations and construction projects. Their ethics regarding forced labor, making them morally problematic despite coming from different cultural traditions than the Efreet. The Tao relationship with surface-dwelling mortals remains limited due to Tao preference for underground environments. When you do encounter Tao, it usually involves trade in gems and precious metals, negotiations over mining rights in deep caverns, or conflicts when mortal excavations intrude on Tao territory. Tao respect wealth and deal fairly with those who bring them valuable trade goods. They show little patience for those they view as wasting their time or attempting to cheat them in business dealings. Beyond these four major races, you encounter lesser geniekin throughout Zakhara. Jan represent the weakest of true genies, possessing limited connection to all four elements rather than strong affinity with one. They often live primarily in the mortal world, serving as intermediaries between humans and more powerful genies. Half-genies inherit partial elemental abilities from their genie parents while remaining fundamentally mortal, often displaying minor magical talents or physical characteristics reflecting their elemental heritage. Gen, the tiny elemental spirits serving Sha'ir, exist as fragments of elemental essence, barely conscious enough to follow simple commands. The magical traditions of Zakhara draw deeply from this proximity to elemental planes and constant interaction with genies. You study the art of Sha'ir magic, perhaps the most distinctive and powerful magical tradition, unique to the land of fate. Sha'ir don't memorize spells in the manner of traditional wizards from Faerun or other lands. Instead, they forge relationships with Gen, the tiny elemental spirits who serve as intermediaries between mortal spellcasters and the vast powers of genies and elemental planes. Your training as Sha'ir begins with summoning your first Gen. You perform the ritual carefully, burning specific incenses and speaking words of power that resonate across planar boundaries. The Gen appears as a small elemental creature, barely more than a spark of consciousness wrapped in elemental essence. This being bonds with you, becoming your constant companion and the conduit through which you access magical power. The relationship between Sha'ir and Gen grows over time, with experienced Sha'ir able to command multiple Gen and send them on increasingly complex missions. When you need to cast a spell, you send your Gen to retrieve that magical effect from a genie dwelling on the appropriate elemental plane. The Gen travels through the elemental planes, seeking a genie willing to loan the power needed for your spell. This process takes time, making Sha'ir magic less reliable for immediate needs than traditional wizardry. However, Sha'ir magic offers tremendous flexibility, as you can potentially access a wide variety of spells as long as your Gen can find a genie willing to provide the needed power. The success of your Gen's mission depends on multiple factors you learn to evaluate and manipulate. The relationship between your Gen and the genies they approach matters enormously, as genies who like and trust your Gen respond more favorably to requests. Your own reputation among genies influences their willingness to assist you, creating incentive to treat genies honorably and build positive relationships across the elemental planes. The nature of the spell you request also matters, with genies more willing to provide powers aligned with their element and nature. Elemental magic informs more familiar to traditional wizards, also thrives in Zakhara. You study schools of magic focused on individual elements: fire magic, water magic, air magic, and earth magic, each drawing power from its corresponding plane. Elementalists specialize in spells manipulating their chosen element, often developing relationships with genies that provide additional power and knowledge. Fire mages learn to conjure flames and manipulate heat. Water mages master control over liquids and weather. Air mages command winds and lightning. Earth mages shape stone and strengthen structures. The city of Brass deserves special attention as the most significant planar location connected to Zakhara. This immense fortress city exists on the plane of fire, its brass walls rising impossibly high and extending for miles in every direction. You approach the city of Brass with extreme caution, as this represents the heart of Efreet power and a place where mortals exist only at the sufferance of their hosts. The city serves as a major planar trading hub, where beings from across the multiverse gather to exchange goods, information, and services. The streets of the city of brass radiate heat that would kill unprotected mortals within minutes. You require magical protection to survive here. Enchantments shielding you from the burning air and metal surfaces heated beyond terrestrial forge temperatures. Despite the hostile environment, the city bustles with activity as Efreet, fire elementals, salamanders, and other fire-aligned beings conduct business and pursue their various agendas. Markets sell goods from every plane, including items impossible to find anywhere else in existence. Planar travel becomes a practical consideration for advanced magical practitioners in Zakhara. You learn techniques for shifting between planes, traveling from the material world to elemental realms and back. The process involves finding thin points in planar boundaries, places where the material world draws close to an elemental plane. Natural portals exist at certain geographic locations where elemental energy concentrates strongly. The magical landscape of Zakhara offers you power unprecedented in most Dungeons and Dragons settings. With access to Genies as allies, elemental planes as resources, and unique traditions like Sha'ir magic, expanding your capabilities. Yet this power comes with complexity and danger, requiring you to navigate planar politics, maintain relationships with temperamental genies, and respect forces capable of destroying you if provoked. In the land of fate, magic means more than memorizing spells and casting them at enemies. Magic means building bridges between worlds, forging alliances with beings of pure elemental essence, and accepting your place in a cosmic web, connecting material and elemental existence across infinite planes. Section 4. Cities, Kingdoms, and the Pearl Cities. The political geography of Zakhara creates a complex mosaic of kingdoms, city-states, tribal confederations, and independent domains that sometimes cooperate and sometimes conflict according to their interests and the dictates of fate. You navigate this landscape, understanding that political power in the land of fate flows from multiple sources: military strength, commercial wealth, religious authority, magical capability, and the legitimacy granted by tradition and proper behavior. No single empire unifies Zakhara under one rule, though several major powers dominate their regions and extend influence far beyond their immediate borders. Huzas, the City of Delights, stands as the jewel of Zakhara and seat of the Grand Caliph, who holds nominal authority over vast territories. You approach this magnificent metropolis from the desert, watching its white towers and golden domes emerge from the heat shimmer like a vision from paradise. The city sprawls across the landscape at the junction of major trade routes, its large population making it one of the greatest urban centers in all Zakhara. Walls circle the city in concentric rings, each ring representing a different era of expansion, as Huzas grew from modest town to mighty capital over the centuries. The Grand Caliph rules from the palace of the enlightened throne, a complex of buildings, gardens, and courtyards, occupying an entire district at the heart of Huzas. You pass through gates guarded by elite Mamluks, the slave soldiers whose loyalty to the Grand Caliph supersedes all other bonds. These warriors train from childhood in martial arts and absolute obedience, their discipline and skill making them a formidable military force. The Mamluks serve not only as guards, but as administrators, generals, and advisors, their position paradoxically granting enslaved individuals more power and prestige than most free persons could ever achieve. The Grand Caliph maintains power through a delicate balance of military strength, diplomatic skill, and respect for traditional prerogatives of various subordinate rulers. You observe how the Grand Caliph cannot simply command the sultans, emirs, and sheiks who acknowledge his overlordship. Instead, the Grand Caliph negotiates, persuades, and occasionally threatens, using the prestige of the office and the backing of Huzas's forces to maintain influence over territories far from the capital. This system works because all parties recognize its benefits. The Grand Caliph provides arbitration of disputes, organizes defense against external threats, and maintains trade networks benefiting everyone. The city itself divides into distinct quarters, each with its own character and population. You wander through the merchant quarter where caravans from across Zakhara and beyond arrive daily, their goods filling warehouses before distribution to markets throughout the city and surrounding regions. The sounds of many languages, the exotic smells of foreign spices, and the sight of goods from distant lands create an atmosphere of cosmopolitan sophistication. Merchants negotiate deals worth fortunes, their agreements binding even without written contracts, because honor demands keeping one's word. The street of metalworkers rings with the sound of hammers on anvils as craftsmen create everything from simple tools to masterwork weapons and exquisite jewelry. You commission a scimitar from a master smith whose family has practiced the craft for generations, each member adding innovations while maintaining traditional techniques. The blade he creates demonstrates exceptional quality, its balance and edge representing the pinnacle of Zakharan metalworking. The Scholars' Quarter houses libraries, schools, and the colleges where students from across Zakhara come to study with famous teachers. You attend lectures on mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, and magical theory, absorbing knowledge accumulated over centuries and preserved through careful scholarship. The libraries contain texts written in dozens of languages, some dating back centuries, their ancient wisdom still relevant to modern questions. Scholars debate in shaded courtyards, their discussions sometimes growing heated, but rarely descending into violence, as they value reasoned argument over force. The harbor quarter stretches along the coast, where Huzas meets the Golden Gulf. You walk among sailors and fishermen, ship captains and dock workers, all engaged in the maritime commerce that brings much of Huzas' wealth. Vessels from across the crowded sea and beyond dock here, their holds filled with trade goods, and their crews telling tales of distant lands and strange encounters. The harbor masters maintain order through official authority and unofficial connections to the various guilds and organizations that thrive in port cities. Beyond Huzas, you travel through the lands owing allegiance to the Grand Caliph, territories both directly ruled and semi-independent. The Caliphate encompasses rich agricultural regions along rivers, desert areas controlled by nomadic tribes who acknowledge the Grand Caliph's authority, and smaller cities serving as provincial capitals. Local governors appointed by the Grand Caliph administer daily affairs, while sending tax, revenue, and military levies to Huzas when called upon. The Corsair domains present a stark contrast to the organized hierarchy of the Caliphate. You sail into these pirate-controlled territories along Zakhara's coast, where independent Corsair captains prey on merchant shipping while maintaining their own ports and bases. The Corsairs acknowledge no higher authority than their own captains, and the informal councils, where major pirate leaders gather to divide territories and settle disputes. This system functions despite lacking formal government structures, with powerful captains maintaining order through force and reputation. The city of Qudra serves as a major Corsair settlement, though the loosely organized nature of pirate society makes calling any settlement a capital somewhat misleading. You enter such ports carefully, knowing that lawless settlements tolerate any behavior as long as you have gold to spend and don't cause problems for the powerful. These cities support various establishments catering to sailors and pirates, their proprietors paying protection money to whichever Corsair captain currently controls their section of town. Individual Corsair captains rule their ships as absolute authorities and maintain bases ranging from fortified islands to protected coves, where they repair vessels and store plunder. You join the crew of one such captain, learning the harsh discipline maintaining order aboard pirate vessels and the code governing Corsair society. Corsairs distinguish themselves from common thieves, viewing their profession as legitimate warfare against wealthy merchants. They maintain certain standards, ransoming prisoners rather than killing them unnecessarily, and keeping agreements made with fellow Corsairs, even when breaking such agreements might bring profit. The free cities along coasts and important trade routes maintain independence from both the Caliphate and the Corsair domains through combinations of strong defenses, commercial importance, and diplomatic skill. You visit these autonomous city-states, each developing distinctive character and governance, reflecting local traditions and circumstances. Some free cities operate as merchant republics, where wealthy traders elect councils to govern civic affairs. Others maintain traditional monarchies, with sultans or emirs ruling according to ancient customs. Still, others experiment with various hybrid systems, blending different governmental approaches. These cities achieve independence through making themselves valuable to larger powers, while maintaining sufficient military strength to resist conquest. You observe how free cities position themselves as essential middlemen connecting northern and southern trade routes, or as banking centers holding wealth for merchants across Zakhara, or as manufacturing hubs producing goods that can't be easily obtained elsewhere. Their continued independence benefits even powers that might otherwise seek to conquer them, creating stability through mutual economic interest. The Pearl Cities occupy a special category among Zakharan urban centers, representing settlements where Marid influence shapes culture and politics alongside human traditions. You sail to these coastal and island cities where the boundary between surface and underwater civilizations grows blurred, where Marid walk openly through streets and sometimes hold positions of authority. The Pearl Cities maintain close relationships with Marid communities beneath the waves, their human populations benefiting from Marid protection and trade, while accepting Marid involvement in their affairs. The architecture in Pearl Cities often reflects aquatic influences, with buildings featuring flowing lines reminiscent of underwater structures, extensive use of coral and shell in decoration, and open designs allowing sea breezes to flow freely through living spaces. Fountains and pools appear throughout these cities, their water sourced from springs with underwater connections. The mixed population includes humans, half Marid with aquatic adaptations, and Marid maintaining residences both above and below the waves. The relationship between surface and underwater populations in Pearl Cities creates unique political arrangements. Based on the setting's emphasis on cooperation between different peoples, you can infer that these cities likely operate under shared governance systems, where both human and Marid leaders participate in decision-making. This partnership benefits both groups. Marid provide protection from maritime threats, while humans ensure steady trade in surface goods. The nomadic tribes wandering Zakhara's deserts maintain their own power structures, separate from urban political systems. You ride with the Al-Qadim, learning how these desert peoples organize themselves into extended family groups, combining into larger tribes united by common ancestry, traditions, and leadership. A sheikh leads each tribe, this position typically hereditary, but requiring the sheikh to maintain the respect and loyalty of tribal members. Desert life demands effective decision-making, so tribes cannot afford to follow inadequate leaders. Tribal law governs the Al-Qadim according to traditions modified over time to align with the law of the lawgiver. You learn the complex web of obligations and expectations binding tribe members to each other, and establishing relationships with other tribes. Honor and reputation matter enormously in tribal society, with a person's word considered absolutely binding and violations of hospitality counting among the worst possible offenses. Tribal justice operates through consensus of elders rather than formal courts, with disputes settled through negotiation, compensation payments, or in extreme cases, formal combat between aggrieved parties. The relationship between nomadic tribes and settled peoples creates constant tension and cooperation throughout Zakharan history. You see how cities depend on tribes for guides, guards, and camels for caravan trade, while tribes need cities as markets for their animals and sources of manufactured goods. Conflicts erupt when tribes raid settled areas, or when city dwellers attempt to restrict tribal movement through traditional territories. Yet, both groups ultimately recognize they need each other, leading to treaties, marriages between tribal and urban families, and elaborate diplomatic protocols managing their interactions. Merchant guilds wield enormous power throughout Zakhara regardless of local political structures. You join such a guild, discovering how these commercial organizations maintain armed guards protecting caravans, operate warehouses and trading posts in every major city, and employ agents negotiating on behalf of member merchants. Guild membership requires substantial capital investment and acceptance by existing members, creating exclusive organizations of wealthy traders who cooperate to maximize profits and minimize competition. The guilds negotiate with local rulers for favorable trading terms, and sometimes engage in political maneuvering to protect their interests. You witness guild representatives meeting with rulers, their conversations polite, but carrying implications about economic consequences if proposed policies go forward. Rulers must balance their desire for tax revenue against the risk of driving away commerce that sustains their territories. Craft guilds organize artisans according to their specialties, regulating quality standards, training apprentices, and protecting members' interests. You apprentice yourself to a master craftsman operating under guild protection, learning not just technical skills, but also guild politics and traditions. The guild examines your work before allowing you to establish your own business, ensuring you meet quality standards. Once accepted as a master, you gain guild protection while accepting obligation to train future apprentices and maintain guild standards. Religious authorities exercise significant influence over political affairs, despite the covenant's separation of divine and temporal power. You consult with senior religious judges when facing complex legal questions involving interpretation of the law of the lawgiver. These learned scholars command respect from rulers, their advice carrying weight because everyone recognizes their spiritual authority and deep understanding of the law. Religious judges cannot command armies or levy taxes, but their pronouncements influence public opinion and help legitimate or delegitimize political actions. Local priests, teachers, and scholars form networks connecting religious communities across political boundaries. You participate in gatherings where these religious leaders discuss theological questions, coordinate charitable works, and occasionally voice collective opinions on political matters affecting the faithful. This religious network operates independently of secular authority structures, creating alternative channels of communication and influence throughout Zakhara. The political landscape of Zakhara offers you a world where power flows through multiple channels, and success requires understanding not just military might, but commercial relationships, religious authority, tribal honor, and the complex web of obligation and alliance. Connecting all these systems, you navigate between the grandeur of Huzas, the independence of free cities, the aquatic mysteries of the Pearl Cities, and the mobile courts of desert tribes, finding in each location different expressions of Zakharan civilization and different opportunities for adventure, profit, and fates designed to manifest through your actions. Section 5. Legacy, Revival, and the Eternal Fate. The adventure modules and campaign materials released for Al-Qadim between 1992 and 1994 created a rich collection of storylines showcasing the setting's unique qualities, while providing dungeon masters with tools to craft memorable campaigns. You discover that these publications went beyond simple dungeon crawls, instead offering narratives deeply rooted in Zakharan culture, philosophy, and the complex relationships between mortals, genies, and elemental forces. The adventures emphasized role-playing, moral choices, and cultural immersion alongside combat encounters. The Golden Voyages boxed set launched the setting, providing not just one adventure, but an entire campaign framework. You embark on a series of sea-based adventures, exploring the crowded sea, visiting various islands, encountering pirates and Marid, and ultimately uncovering threats to the region's stability. The adventures in Golden Voyages showcase the maritime aspects of Zakharan life, with ship encounters, underwater exploration, and the challenges of adventuring in tropical island environments, where the next island might be ruled by a benevolent sultan, a corsair captain, or a Marid prince with mysterious motives. The Corsairs of the Great Sea boxed set expanded on pirate themes, providing detailed information about Corsair culture and adventures centered on piracy, naval conflict, and the politics of lawless societies. You join a Corsair crew or fight against pirates, depending on your moral inclinations, navigating the ethical complexities where freedom fighters and criminals blur together. The set includes rules for ship-to-ship combat and managing crews. City of Delights offered comprehensive detail about Huzas, transforming the capital from brief description into a fully realized urban campaign setting. You explore the city district by district, learning about important characters, political factions, and countless adventure hooks. The book provides material for extended city-based campaigns, from street-level investigations and guild intrigue to palace politics and threats against the Grand Caliph himself. City of Delights demonstrates how urban adventures in Al-Qadim emphasize social interaction and intrigue alongside action. The Assassin Mountain adventure sends you pursuing a mysterious killer who's murdered several prominent figures across Zakhara. You track this assassin to a remote mountain stronghold, discovering a conspiracy reaching into high levels of power. The adventure combines investigation, wilderness survival, and eventually a climactic confrontation. You face the challenge of maintaining honor while dealing with dishonorable opponents, a recurring theme in Al-Qadim adventures where ethical behavior matters as much as tactical success. 101 Adventures provided 13 shorter scenarios designed for quick play or to serve as side quests during larger campaigns. You experience tremendous variety across these adventures, from rescuing kidnapped merchants from desert bandits to investigating haunted ruins, from competing in festivals to surviving dangers in the wilderness. The adventures showcase different aspects of Zakharan life and provide templates dungeon masters could adapt for their own scenarios. The Ruined Kingdoms campaign explored mysterious lands beyond Zakhara's civilized regions, areas where ancient societies fell, leaving only ruins. You venture into these dangerous territories, seeking lost treasures, ancient knowledge, or helping establish new settlements in lands long abandoned. The campaign balanced exploration, combat, and mystery, while examining themes of civilizational collapse and renewal. Cities of Bone introduced darker elements to the setting, exploring undead and necromancy within Zakharan context. You investigate ruins and face threats from unliving creatures, despite the Covenant's restrictions on such magic. This sourcebook showed that even in enlightened Zakhara, ancient evils and forbidden magic pose ongoing dangers. Secrets of the Lamp detailed Genie society and Sha'ir magic extensively. You gain deep understanding of Genie cultures, their hierarchies, their relationships with mortals, and the mechanics of Sha'ir spellcasting. This sourcebook became essential for campaigns featuring heavy Genie interaction or Sha'ir player characters. Caravans presented rules and adventures centered on overland trade. You manage caravans crossing Zakhara's deserts and trade routes, dealing with bandits, hostile weather, and commercial opportunities. The set emphasized the economic aspects of adventure and the importance of trade to Zakharan civilization. Beyond published adventures, the setting books provided extensive information supporting original campaigns. The Arabian Adventures hardcover rulebook established core mechanics and cultural information. The Land of Fate boxed set provided geographical overview and introduced the setting's fundamental concepts. Each publication added layers of detail, making Zakhara feel like a living world. The impact of Al-Qadim on Dungeons and Dragons and the broader role-playing game industry extended beyond simply adding another campaign setting. You recognize that Al-Qadim represented one of the earliest attempts to create a fantasy setting, drawing inspiration from non-European cultures. While the setting certainly viewed Middle Eastern and North African cultures through a fantasy lens and included simplifications, it made genuine effort to present these cultures respectfully and as more than exotic backdrops for European-style adventures. The game mechanics introduced or expanded by Al-Qadim influenced later design work. The Sha'ir class demonstrated alternative approaches to spellcasting that would inform spontaneous casting systems in later editions. The emphasis on character kits, providing specialized abilities and role-playing hooks, presaged the customization options that became central to later Dungeons and Dragons editions. The detailed treatment of honor, reputation, and social mechanics showed how game systems could support role-playing and cultural immersion beyond combat. Al-Qadim's philosophical framework offered something genuinely different from standard Dungeons and Dragons alignments and religious systems. You appreciate how the setting explored themes of fate, honor, and enlightenment in ways that created coherent societies and compelling character motivations. The covenant and the relationship between mortals and gods presented an alternative to typical fantasy polytheism, where deities constantly meddle in mortal affairs. The emphasis on ethical behavior and personal growth over power accumulation provided philosophical depth. The setting's treatment of genies influenced how these beings appeared in subsequent Dungeons and Dragons materials. You notice that later editions often referenced concepts from Al-Qadim when describing genies, and variations of the Sha'ir class appeared across multiple editions. The City of Brass became canonical part of the multiverse referenced in core rulebooks. Al-Qadim established genies as complex cultures with politics and traditions, rather than just magical servants to be summoned and commanded. Despite its innovations and quality, Al-Qadim faded from active support after the mid-1990s. You learn that timing and market forces contributed to this outcome. The period when TSR released Al-Qadim saw numerous campaign settings released, splitting the player base across too many options. Sales for individual settings suffered as customers lacked resources to support multiple lines simultaneously. When TSR faced financial difficulties, they consolidated around their most popular settings, and Al-Qadim didn't make the cut for continued development. The setting effectively disappeared from official Dungeons and Dragons materials for decades. You search through later edition core rulebooks, finding only occasional references to Zakhara as existing somewhere on Toril, or brief entries about genies referencing concepts from the setting without acknowledging their origin. The detailed cultures, philosophical framework, and distinctive character of Zakhara faded from official continuity, becoming lost lore known primarily to fans who remembered the original publication. The case for reviving Al-Qadim in modern Dungeons and Dragons grows stronger with contemporary gaming culture demanding diverse settings representing various cultural traditions. You recognize that Al-Qadim provides a foundation for this representation, a fully developed world that could be updated and refined. The current 5th edition has seen tremendous success, with settings offering distinctive flavors beyond standard fantasy tropes. Al-Qadim fits perfectly into this approach, offering Arabian Nights-inspired adventure with unique elements that would feel fresh to players familiar only with Faerun-based campaigns. The mechanical innovations Al-Qadim introduced could be updated for modern rule systems. Based on 5th edition's design philosophy, you can envision how Sha'ir magic might work using contemporary spellcasting frameworks, perhaps functioning similarly to certain existing classes, but with the flavor of sending Gen to retrieve spells from Genies. The honor system could be formalized into mechanics, rewarding players for ethical behavior. The relationship between characters and Genies could be developed into intricate social encounter systems, leveraging 5th edition's emphasis on role-playing. The setting's philosophical framework speaks to contemporary interests in mindfulness, personal growth, and ethical behavior. You notice how modern audiences often seek meaning and depth in their entertainment, looking for stories exploring complex themes rather than simple conflicts. Al-Qadim's emphasis on fate, enlightenment, and honor provides exactly this kind of depth, offering players opportunities to engage with meaningful questions while still enjoying exciting adventures. The untapped potential in Al-Qadim extends across multiple dimensions. You can envision campaigns exploring relationships between surface civilizations and underwater married realms, with characters serving as intermediaries between worlds. The elemental planes remain largely unexplored in published adventures, offering opportunities for planar campaigns focused on genie politics and elemental magic. The mysterious Lorgiver could be explored more deeply, with campaigns uncovering lost teachings or facing threats to the Covenant itself. The nomadic tribes of the desert offer campaign possibilities, emphasizing survival, honor, and maintaining tradition. You travel with the Albadia, experiencing desert life authentically, participating in their customs and conflicts. These campaigns could explore themes of cultural preservation and the tension between traditional values and change. The potential for crossover with other Dungeons and Dragons settings enriches both Al-Qadim and the broader multiverse. You might play characters from Faerun traveling to Zakhara and experiencing culture shock as familiar magic behaves differently and social customs require adaptation. Or perhaps Zakharan adventurers venture beyond the haunted lands into the wider world. The city of brass serves as a planar hub connecting to countless other worlds, enabling campaigns spanning multiple settings. The community of fans who remember Al-Qadim maintains the setting's legacy through homebrew materials, online discussions, and personal campaigns adapted for newer editions. You find enthusiasts who share conversion notes for bringing Al-Qadim content into 5th edition, discuss their own campaigns set in Zakhara, and keep interest alive while hoping for official revival. These fans prove that interest exists and that market demand would likely support new Al-Qadim materials if produced. The arguments against revival deserve consideration. You acknowledge concerns about cultural representation and whether the original Al-Qadim included elements needing correction. These concerns have merit, and any revival would require cultural consultation, sensitivity readers from relevant backgrounds, and willingness to update or remove elements that aged poorly. Yet these challenges don't make revival impossible, merely more complex and demanding of thoughtfulness and respect. Your journey through Zakhara reveals a setting that remains relevant, compelling, and full of untapped potential decades after its creation. The Land of Fate offers adventures where honor matters as much as gold, where fate guides but doesn't dictate, and where enlightenment represents the highest achievement. The philosophical depth, cultural richness, and distinctive elements combine to create something genuinely special in fantasy role-playing. The fate of Al-Qadim rests in the hands of publishers, designers, and the gaming community. You can advocate for revival, support projects honoring the setting's legacy, and keep Zakhara alive through your own campaigns and creative works. Share your appreciation for this setting, introduce new players to its wonders, and demonstrate that interest endures across generations. Every campaign set in Zakhara, every character walking the streets of Huzas or sailing the crowded sea, every Sha'ir sending their gen to bargain with Genies keeps the Land of Fate alive. The Land of Fate awaits your exploration, whether through original materials adapted for modern play or through campaigns bringing Zakhara to life in new ways. Step into the desert, feel the heat and the promise of adventure, and write your own story in the sands of destiny. The Genies still walk among mortals, the Grand Caliph still rules from Huzas, and fate still guides those wise enough to perceive its currents. Your adventure in Zakhara begins now, limited only by imagination and willingness to embrace something different, something special, something that reminds us why we love fantasy role-playing. If you enjoyed this deep exploration of Al-Qadim and the Land of Fate, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps me continue creating detailed lore videos, exploring the hidden corners and forgotten settings of Dungeons and Dragons. Share this video with friends who might appreciate learning about Al-Qadim, and let me know in the comments what other obscure settings or lore topics you'd like me to cover. Until next time, may fate guide your path and honor light your way.